Amy,
This conference will now be recorded.
Now we're ready, Smith, right? So I'd like to call the December 10th, 2020 meeting of the Architecture Review Board to order. Thanks everybody for being here. Let's start with approval of our minutes for our last meeting of November 12th, 2020. Anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes of last month? And go around the room. Steve, anything?
No comment.
Steve, there's an
Shannon?
echo from your computer because you're both on telephone and the computer, I suppose.
Who are you speaking to?
Yeah, I'm
Steve?
trying to figure out how to shut off
Steve,
one of the audios.
can I mute one of them?
Yes.
Okay, Shannon Hovan, any comment? It's a no, I think. John Zabel, any comment?
No comments.
Tom Sarkowitz,
No comment.
okay, that being said, I also have no comment. Is there a motion? John Zabel,
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the November meeting as written.
is there a second? Tom Sarkowitz, second. All in
Second,
favor?
second emotion.
Okay, Tom beat you to it. All in favor, say aye or raise your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so meeting minutes pass unanimously. Thank you. All right, so our only piece of business today really is the review of our own application. So thanks to Tom for kicking that off and putting us in a new format. And then it's unclear who else kind of contributed. But again, I think the best way to do this is kind of go around the room and offer some commentary about what they see. And since Tom, you started this, why don't you go first, please, Tom?
All right.
Oh.
Tom Sarkowitz,
Jamie.
board member.
I can share the screen to see the application if you would like me to put it on.
Well, does anyone, I mean, I've printed out hard copies myself. Does anyone want to see the application in front of them? Does anybody need that? Okay, I don't.
I have it on my screen.
Okay, so we're all good?
Yep.
Can I start?
Tom, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up on my screen. It keeps closing. Part of the thing that I thought was most important was our application checklist. It's on the second sheet, I believe. And the language I wrote for number 1 says the following must be submitted by the application deadline. The ARB will not hear an application unless all requested information is submitted. I think that's important that we're not going to hear an application unless we have everything we asked for. And what we asked for are what's listed in front of you. And I just put like a little bullet under each thing to further explain some of the points or the review items we'd like to see. I think this makes it clear as a checklist for the applicant to include in their proposals. I mean, it gets a little frustrating when we have proposals from people who don't have a landscape plan or only have a couple elevations and no real materials or no lighting and this, that, and the other thing, which is all things only we care about, only we want to review. So that was a contribution I put. I also think we should still include the application fee. I did some research I looked at a bunch of other towns across the country, and it seemed that like a median fee was around $300. I don't know what other application fees are in this town. I mean, $300 sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of projects that run hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars, $300 isn't a lot, and it gives people a real incentive to, you know, produce and perform for our board, and I think that's important. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I feel like trying to think the best way to do this, whether to go around the room, or does anyone to start with have any comments on the things that Tom has said? And maybe raise your right hand if you have a comment. Susmitha.
I spoke to Susmitha Arora, town planner. I spoke to Jay regarding fees, and he told me that when they had to revise the fee schedule for the planning and zoning applications in the past, it was really tough to get it passed through the council. And it's not something that they would easily, you know, do. And I don't know if you would like to try that approach, but I'm just letting you know that it may, I don't know, it may prove to be difficult, especially right now. You know, number of people losing jobs and all.
Okay, Susmitha, I think you're frozen, I believe. So thanks. Anyone else have commentary on some of the things that Tom brought up? Just raise your hand and I'll call on you. John Zabel.
John Zabel, member. First of all, Tom, great job. I appreciate you putting that together. The one thing.
Excuse me, Jamie. Excuse me. If Susmitha's frozen, can you hit the record button? Because that means that this whole meeting.
I mean, it's still recording up in the top.
Okay, thank you. I can't
I don't
see
think
that on my.
that's not affected by the hosts getting frozen, I don't think.
Yeah, it is showing on mine that it's, if I hit the button, it says it'll stop recording. So recording in progress, it says, Aileen.
Okay, sorry, I'm not seeing it on my iPad. I apologize. Excuse the interruption, please.
No, that's all right.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely like the bulleted idea, and it's always a good idea to have that sub-bullet providing the description. I just wonder if there's some way we could tie the page numbers again. I think it would be so much easier, like under the lighting is the one that jumps out to me, but you mentioned exterior lighting. Well, go to page, hold on, I gotta pull it up. Go to page, I think it's, I actually had it up. I'm sorry, I changed pages here. Go to page 7 of our design guidelines, and there it is. That way we're not creating sub bullets of sub bullets saying, look, your plans must look at position, fixtures with canopies to help deflect light. You know what I mean? We're not getting into the minutia, but we're saying, hey, look, if your plan's going to be adequate, it should address these things as outlined. I think someone had tried to convey that with number 9, which was already part of our guidelines. But I think it's more.
Hello.
I want that. Oh, Susmitha, you back?
Yes, I'm back on phone. My internet is very, very slow today. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's all right. We're continuing on. I think we have to be a little stronger on number 9. I don't think that, actually, I'm getting off of where Tom was. So those were my comments about Tom's stuff. If we could link the page numbers, that would be good. maybe a little bit more about what material and color selection sheet is what we feel that is relevant to, you know what I mean? Is that building materials? Is that light posts? Is that, you know what I mean? There's any number of things that we could be asking for. So I think in order to keep with the theme of the above, having those sub bullets really indicating what we're focused on would be good. But that's my, I've got plenty of other comments, but those are the ones relative to what Tom had said or outlined.
Okay, so anyone else, someone else even has a caller too. I don't know who that is. Steve or Shannon, do you have any commentary? Just raise your hand if you have comments on what Tom has. Sorry about that. No, Tom or Shannon, or Steve or Shannon? No?
Yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
Sorry. Thanks, Steve. Shannon Hovan, member. My only comment, and I don't know if this is arbitrary or not, but I think that there are 2 places on the application where maybe we could consider, I don't know, an underline and a bold. Like the ARB will not hear an application unless all the requested information is submitted. And number 6, maybe that just gets underlined and bold. I don't know, just something I thought scanning through. I think those are the 2 perhaps most important prerequisites for the applicant before they put something together. And I was also thinking, what was the project we reviewed by St. James? The really complete one. It's been a year. I don't remember what it was called. But is there any, if that's public, can we like put that as a reference submission and say this is what a complete submission looks like? I don't know that they'll actually click on it or use it, but it may help for people who've never done it before to see, you know, what we're looking for in totality, to see what those drawings look like and what they're made up of, et cetera, et cetera. And I would like to echo John's comment on having the page numbers in there for reference to make it no nonsense. They can't complain they didn't know where it was. We literally outlined it for them. And that's all I have for now. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. So Steve, do you have any commentary on what Tom had to say?
Steve Law, Vice Chairman. Yeah, I added a few notes there. I think you guys may have seen some of them. I think what we're trying to do is just make sure we have some more commitment from them. There's a couple points that I made, and what I did is I actually looked at the Town of Greenwich Architectural Review Commission, and they had some language about has the application been heard before, and I added a note about does the proposed application meet all zoning regulations. I think you guys may have, I think we shared, Susmitha may have shared that with you. But I don't necessarily think that the application fee is warranted at this time. I know we're a young commission, and maybe we'll get there at some point, but I think we're still kind of manipulating this and tailoring the application and the checklist. So I do agree that we should get some kind of signature from the applicant that they understand that if it's not complete, that we can kick it back and not schedule a hearing. I think that's my only few comments for now.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Sorry, technical problem there. So, you know, I have a couple comments, but I think I can just wait until, I don't think there's anything else besides what you guys have already talked about, really. So I'll just hold off till get to my turn. So let's move along the room. Shannon, further comments of your own in your review of this application?
I think in my last rant that I wasn't being overly articulate, and I added everything that I had noted and highlighted when I went through it. But Yeah, Jamie, I don't have anything additional to what I had said. I may have additional comments since I missed the last meeting once you guys start talking to bounce off of, but not at this time.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. John Zabel, comments?
Yeah, John Zabel, member. I just think it's getting, I want to say clunky, but I mean, we've got stuff like, I don't know, there's subject property area, which is nice, applicant, all that kind of stuff. The changes to the floor area, I assume that may come. You know, I mean, we haven't seen anything that's an addition to, or I guess I'd have to ask Susmitha, how would that work, Susmitha, if it's a change to an existing structure or change to an existing property? Is it have we defined it anywhere, or has our charge defined what type of modification would put it in our purview to have that type of information?
We did not, and that's very, dependent on case by case, because usually whenever somebody is proposing a change to a liquor store or a gas station, if it's not significant, if they're just changing windows or something, I typically ask Jamie, and we make a decision whether it has to actually go before the ARB or not. But having said that, if you have anything that can help explain more better, that's good. But it's very hard, like, you never
Sure.
know what type of application you would get. Mhm.
Yeah, I just looked at that, and if we're proposing to include it existing versus proposed, I would see that as, oh, look, it exceeds our threshold. If we're gonna ask for that type of information, I would assume we would have an established threshold that we'd be asking for that. Okay, you do the math, you're over 500 more square feet, we're gonna need to look at this or something like that. So that one I'm not sure we need unless it's defined. I'm just going through some of the other proposed recommendations. Does it meet all zoning regulations? I think we spent a lot of time on that last time. I'm not sure who really needs to be, I think I'll ask Steve, because Steve, this was your edit. Are we hoping to put the onus on the applicant there by asking, do they feel the project meets the zoning regulations?
Steve Law, Vice Chairman. Yes, John, that was my intent, was after our discussions last meeting about whether we wanted to, tie in the zoning regulations, I thought it was advantageous to have some kind of acknowledgement that what they've submitted meets some kind of zoning regulations before we spend time and look at it. That was kind of my thinking.
No, that makes sense. Like I said, we're getting a little clunky. Like, we got stuff that might be on a checklist that's now on this front end of the application, and I just want to make sure we get this as tight as possible. I apologize. I only seen Steve's stuff, I think, just today. I've been having email problems with the account that this goes to. Definitely hasn't been reviewed by us before. We're hopeful that it hasn't been, but we know we've had a couple applications that we would have kicked away, most likely, had we been a little bit more established. Again, saying that they should have reviewed the design guidelines and based design decisions accordingly, I think that's where you'd, number 9, say you've looked at the checklist. I mean, I've looked at the design guidelines and I've looked at the associated checklist now, which if we do it correctly, I think at least Shannon was in agreement that we should have some page numbers or section citations. I think number 10 possibly can go away. If we have the checklist and we're asking for all that stuff in the checklist, proper plans, maps, design drawings, photos, number 10 can go away. Again, the information sheet for the application, is that just going to become the checklist? We got all these little different subsections in here that I'm not sure we need, because some of them are stating stuff over and over again. We've already asked the applicant on the front page to sign it. If we tie in a numbered bullet point that they've completed the application in accordance with the checklist, I think that signature should cover all that stuff that's on the front. And then you're left with Tom's checklist. And I think the checklist should be just that. Like, you could go through with a pen. Yes, I've completed that. Yes, I've completed that. And that's basically the checklist. And then you get down into these bullets again, 2 through 4. Those should belong on the application. You know what I mean? That's application materials that you'll be certifying. Yes, I understand all these things. Applications after they're reviewed will go on next month's. Application or applicants should, or their representative should be there. Yes, this is all stuff I'm signing off that I'm going to follow the rules and outline for the ARB meetings and checklists. So those are just some general things. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to move all this stuff around, nor did I want to. I wanted to get other people's opinions on that stuff, but I think we streamline it top to bottom. Here's the applicant information. Here's your expectations. Here's a checklist. Yes, I'm going to sign off. I understand all that. I think it would be a little bit smoother flow and then incorporate those page numbers. So those are just some general comments.
Yeah,
Any commentary from anyone on John's?
Jamie, Steve Law, Vice Chairman. John, I think those points are very well taken. It does get to be a little choppy now, and I think you're right on. We should have the application, a completed application document separate from the checklist. And I think maybe I may have cut and pasted some things and put them in the wrong spot. So the part about the signature, yeah, I agree. That should be moved over, and maybe that's in place of number 10. And then the checklist should just be what is required for the exhibits, the presentation material that is submitted to us.
Okay, Jamie Miller, Chair. So I'm going to comment now because John brought up, number 9, and I don't know if anyone saw it today. So I was the one who threw out there that I thought a strong statement should be made, because what I took out of the last meeting was that nowhere in this application does it really refer very specifically to our own design guidelines. At least the original one didn't refer to the guideline. And so I don't know if everyone saw it or not, but I kind of was thinking that number 9 would go away, and at the top of the page would be, and I can read it, or I don't know if you all saw it, about that project applications accepted by the review board of the town of Stratford shall be reviewed based upon information included in the town's commercial design guidelines. These guidelines are available. I wasn't sure where they're available exactly. It is expected that all applicants will be familiar with the criteria set forth in these guidelines, and that all design decisions shall be based upon the appropriate sections of those design guidelines. Don't worry about the language, but the point is, to me, what I took out of our last meeting is that was one of the most important things we could say is, number 1, here's the guidelines we go by, and we want you in big bold letters, like Shannon said about something bold. We expect you have read these and understand these. And then a checklist is totally something different. That belongs as well. Those are the specifics of what we want to see. But I just feel like that there's the most important language is about our guidelines. So that's the one comment I have about kind of agreeing with John about moving some of these things around, but I think that belongs at the top. Any commentary on that?
I agree, Jamie.
John Zabel, raising his hand. John?
Or possibly just the first bullet. You know what I mean? We still need the applicant information, all that kind of stuff. And then you get in there and hear me as the applicant understand that I've gone to this section. Basically, the application should be a statement by the applicant that they understand the process. Typically, that's what an application is. It's, look, I understand I'm going to do all this, and therefore I'm putting forth all this information. So, no, I like the wording that you had. I looked at that. That's the email that Susmitha just sent out, I think, today.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what you,
Amy,
yeah,
That's
that's what,
correct.
that's what, yeah, I like that. I just think if we organize it and streamline it and then include this checklist, and it's so much better. I mean, we're holding their feet to the fire with giving them something organized, and in the same breath, we expect the same from them.
Okay, thanks, John. Any other commentary on John's? Any other commentary on the thing John has put forth? All right, Steve, any separate commentary you have on this application?
Yes, just to elaborate on it's my number 6 on the application form. You know, both those previous guidelines from San Diego and one from Santa Rosa, I think they both had specific criteria on what the different checklists were required depending on the size of the project. So maybe that number 6, we don't necessarily concern ourselves with changes, but there's nowhere on the application that asks for a specific size or how big the project is. And I think what the good thing about those 2 other applications was, or at least maybe it was the Santa Rosa one, they based the checklist requirements on the size of the project. So a bigger project, a more significant project had more restrictive requirements on what was required for presentation.
Okay, Jamie Miller, Chair. Steve, because I had a quick comment on that, but I'll let you finish.
So Steve Law, Vice Chair. No, I don't think our application asks for any square footage currently.
Jamie Miller, Chair, correct. And I agree with having that. But see, when we look at the checklist where we have, and to me, I think there's some organizational things we can do with the checklist, like, you know, under a proposed exterior elevation sheet, you know, we can have a bullet underneath that can be material and color selection. But under the floor plan sheet, we can have a bullet be provide existing and proposed square footages. I'm not sure that thing about the size, you know, it doesn't feel like it belongs with all the general information about the applicant and the property owner and the address and all that stuff, that belongs as a bullet point under the checklist. That's when I saw that, that's what I was thinking might be a better place and a better fit. Any comment on that, Steve?
No, I agree. That makes sense.
Okay, so Steve, any further commentary?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, Jamie Miller, Chair. So a couple things I think that I'm going to go back to some of the things other people have said as I made notes here. So the part about meeting the zoning regulations, I'm okay with this. If you remember last meeting, I'm not okay with somehow us being in charge of deciding whether or not a project meets the zoning regs. I'm fine putting it on the onus on the applicant. Because what's the point? The point is we don't want to be reviewing projects that end up not conforming and not meeting zoning regs. You know, and while that's certainly a possibility, I mean, that's not going to happen all the time. So I think if we ask this question and make sure that they're clear that, you know, it's not going to be the big runaround. It's not like we're buried in applications here, you know? So I think that putting the onus on them that this meets the zoning regulation is not going to require a variance. To me, I think that that's a good thing to have and doesn't put any responsibility on us as a board. That's number one. Number two, you know, I'll just say that I also think I agree with adding maybe a few of the page numbers. Not everyone in our checklist would get a page number, but I think the ones that it makes sense, we can certainly add that. And like I started to mention, you know, I as I read it through again, I just think there's a little, I like the idea of the checklist and the little bullets, but I just think, for instance, having the site plan sheet and the preliminary landscape plan sheet don't have to be separate things. It's like site plan, and then you could have a bullet including grading parking. Another one saying including selected plants. So, I mean, I just think under the exterior elevations could be a bullet of material and color selection. So I just think that a little tweak of that would go a long way towards simplifying. I mean, it's all there. It's just a matter of, I feel like, organizing it in the best way, I guess. And then that's, and to go back to, I thought where we were going when John was referring to, you know, the size of buildings and what it was remodeling. And it's true that if you look at the overview, the very first page of our guidelines in the overview section, you know, it talks about that these, you know, guidelines are applicable to all commercial properties. And I think maybe if necessary, if we think it's necessary, we can add in there that, you know, to me, the only thing that doesn't go in front of us, if it's a commercial building, is if it's a total interior remodeling that that the public does not see from the street. Short of that, you know, everything else really, you know, we can choose to waive if we want to, but everything else, you know, I feel like should need to come in front of us, and we can decide whether we want to hear it or not. But and so maybe the language in our own regulations, in the guidelines, can talk to that this refers to, you know, additions, renovations, blah blah, you know, whatever we'd like to say if we think that it's not clear enough. And if that's where you were going, I think it was John who had brought that up. If that's where you're going with the whole thing about existing and proposed square footage. So John, maybe you can be clear to me about what your concern was there.
No, John's a Bell member. It wasn't so much a concern. It was, have we thought about, okay, they're doing a minor addition to a commercial structure, or they are proposing to change their whole entire front facade. You know what I mean? I can remember in Stratford, probably you guys have lived here longer than me, but probably 8-10 years ago, I think Paradise Green, the shops across from where the Rite Aid is, did a whole facade improvement, changed all the roof lines and everything. Again, there was no material square footage change to the buildings, but from an aesthetics standpoint, that was certainly something I believe would have fallen within the Architectural Review Board purview. I'm just saying, when I saw that, my first thought was, for exterior changes which would change square footage, was that intended to be a hook? For example, you're doing more than 200 square feet of change, we're going to need to look at it. I just think you start putting that stuff down there, and if it doesn't have any merit to our intent to review or not, it just calls into question why we had asked, I guess. That was my only comment.
Chair. So I mean, I think you hit it right on the head though. So let's go back. Say we were in existence when that little icing on the cake as a little L-shaped plaza was renovated. Susmitha, do you want to say something?
Oh, you can finish and then I'll talk.
Oh, okay. So if that was going on and we existed, of course, I think we would want to. I would assume everyone on this board would assume that would absolutely. It's not a addition or a new building or anything else. But if you're going to change the public face of a building, that absolutely should be in front of us. And I think that perhaps we part of what we're doing, it's not the application, but part of what we should need to make clear perhaps is those kinds of scenarios, and that absolutely that the expectation is if you're gonna change the front facade of your building, and you know that requires you to come in front of the Architectural Review Board. And so unless I've missed it, I don't see that specifically mentioned anywhere in either in the guidelines or in the application. So Smitha, maybe is it anywhere, Smitha, that I've missed?
No, we don't have any criteria. It was pretty general when we started off, because remember when we started off 2 years ago or 1 year ago, it was like, let's just get our feet wet in this and then decide based on the applications that we see what changes could be made. And I think it's very timely that you're thinking about this right now. I also wanted to suggest something, Jamie, and I'm also on Housing Partnership, and I was thinking a little bit about affordable housing in town and how can we make affordable housing fit with the character of the neighborhood. One thought that comes to my mind is if Architectural Review Board is able to take on that role of actually reviewing all affordable housing developments, for design and, making sure that they fit with the character of a neighborhood, that would become less threatening to people. So it's not something that should come from you. It should come from whoever made the roles and responsibilities for ARB in the town. But it's worth advocating for as a chair and as a group. I mean, thinking if that's something you would want to consider, because I think that would make for a great, sometimes they have these affordable housing developments that look like only 3 or 4 units, not more than 8 units, but then, or maybe less than like 6 units or something. But, how can we make them fit with the character of the neighborhood? Is something maybe you may want to think about.
Yeah, Jamie Miller, Chair. So Smita, the way I read this is that, unless it's an affordable housing project that's 2 units or less, it has to come in front of us. Anything, because the building code, absolutely, it has to. The building code, the single family and 2-family residential building code only applies to that. 2-family buildings and single-family structures. Anything more than that goes to the building code, and that's exactly what we spelled out in our guidelines. So if you have a affordable housing project with at least 3 units, it has to come in front of us. And it says, I'll read it to you. It's saying they are applicable to all commercial properties in town and all multifamily residential buildings with 3 units or more. So, and that's because I remember wanting to put that in there because that's.
Is it 3 or 8? Is it 3 or 8? I think maybe the number 8 got cut off or something, because Jay was always telling me that it's 8 units or more that get reviewed.
Incorrect.
I have to go back and look into that. Okay.
No, because I think that what makes 3 the exact number is that's what kicks you into a commercial building code. Anything else, 1 family and 2 family is a different residential building code. The minute you go to 3, and I think that's, to me, that's the perfect, and because we can justify it all day long, that kicks you in to a whole different type of building code, and that's the point that we step in and we can review, and that's what it says right in here. There were 3 units or more.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway,
I believe you.
Good. And I don't know if there's projects out there that are happening, but if they're more than 2 units, 3 units or more, they should be make an application to our board.
Okay.
Okay. So right now I kind of forget where we were here exactly. So I think I had gone through I was making commentary, I guess, and I think that is. Those are my comments. So I guess, the question now we have a bunch of people who've made some commentary on this, and I've jotted down a bunch of notes. I mean, I guess it's going to take another iteration of taking this information and modifying it into a revised application and sending it out. And, I want to get clarity, and John can probably, and Susmitha are the ones who are gonna be able to chime in on this, because I maybe I'm not familiar enough with the Robert's Rules of Order and everything else. So we can, even when it comes to application material, we're not allowed to send things amongst ourselves. We're not talking about projects. We cannot communicate other than through Susmitha. And John is shaking his head no. So I guess that's John. Can you give me a little education here, please, or somebody?
No, because the way this board was established, it has to do with like if we decided to have our own club and we weren't commissioned by the town, that's fine. We can have as many meetings, send whatever we want all over, send happy emojis to one another. But we really, unfortunately, because the way we were charged with this, we can't, everything has to run through Susmitha. That's why this is killing me, that we can't sit with a projection of this thing on a monitor, which we can. We've got the technology. Like I said, if you build it, they will come. Someone could display this on their screen, share it, all this stuff. Someone who's handy, we just start moving it around. And that's what we have to start doing, I think, during these meetings, because of the arduous nature with it going to Susmitha. That's why, frankly, I hadn't done that much because I don't see the fruitfulness of doing that, because you want one thing moved one place and now everyone's got to look at it. And everyone decides, oh, that's not a good place. Let's move it again. We're going to be 20 meetings from now if we continue to do it through these pick and poke through Susmitha. It's just not going to work, I don't think. At least that's my opinion. Susmitha, so I hope I conveyed why we cannot do it, but I think that's why we got to make the most of these virtual meetings, share screens, and make these modifications now. But
Jamie Miller, Chair. Susmitha, you want to comment?
Yeah, I do have a contact with the state who's very familiar with freedom of information laws. Our town clerk gave me his phone number and name. I can contact him and ask how we can deal with this issue outside the regularly scheduled meeting. Having said that, I also know that in the past, when we did our Shakespeare subcommittee meetings, people split into groups and they kind of filed a special meeting with the town clerk. So if John were to actually work with Jamie and Tom, you could call in a special meeting and say, we three are working on this together, and advertise it. And then you three can actually discuss among yourselves by putting it on the screen and doing it, or either in person if you're comfortable meeting with your mask on and socially distancing yourselves. You can, come to town hall and do it in the lunchtime or right after work. I can reserve the room for you, room 213, whatever works for you. That's one way you can do. But if you want to meet as a group and discuss this as a group, then I have to check with the FOI specialist that I have his number. I will call him tomorrow and I'll find out how else we can do this. This is just an application format that you're discussing and nothing beyond that. So I'll see, if there is any leeway there.
Jamie Miller, Chair. I think that would be good. I get we couldn't, be talking about applications, but it just seems very procedural. And the letter of the law, I'm sure, says that we're not allowed to communicate outside of the meetings, but it just seems so non-productive to not be able to do that, I guess. But John, go ahead.
Is there any reason, are people adverse to doing stuff in this electronic format? It seems like, like I said, if there's no aversion to doing it, I mean, it's 7:15 tonight. I mean, to get this done right, I think we just sit and like we would sit around a table. Everyone's here, and like I said, someone just takes control of the document and all the other people fire off their stuff. You got one person looking at how to incorporate page numbers to the application checklist. And Aileen, I'm sorry, I don't want to keep you all night either, but in terms of just doing it properly, I think that's the way to do it, unless someone thinks differently. I think these sub meetings and then having to public notice because you and I got together, and that's all just fine and dandy. But if we could get it done during the meeting or chip away at it, we don't have to do everything over one meeting. But tonight we're going to formalize sections 1 through 7 of the application document. Forget about the checklist. We're going to make sure we're comfortable with all the bullets outlined there and what the applicant actually is going to be signing for. Then maybe the next night we start picking apart the application checklist and going through it, and a couple people sit with the hard copy of our design guidelines and say, okay, bullet 1 under design concept narrative, I think it's a good reference to these page numbers. That's just my own personal opinion. You know what I mean? We do have these meetings. We have one meeting a month. We can have a special meeting if necessary to get it done, but that's just my opinion. To get it done, so we're done.
All right, so I agree, and I'm not a huge technical guy, but I'm certainly open to doing this on screen. We're probably not doing this tonight, so I think, look, I was the same with you. It's like I wasn't sure I wanted to go ahead and move this whole thing around until I heard some more specific some comments from people, but I've been taking notes on what everyone has been saying. And so look, maybe because we're not going to be on, live tonight. I mean, I think, if I can, it may not all be 100% correct, but at least it'll move it forward. I can move things around based upon what I think we just discussed. And then I have to share it, I guess, through Susmitha, and then she can share it, I suppose. And then at least we'll have the beginnings, to minimize our next, because otherwise we're just starting from scratch next time. So why don't we?
Well, I have two. John's a Bell member. I have two monitors here. I'm working from home for the foreseeable future. I've got two huge monitors here. I can, like I said, I'll volunteer myself. All Susmitha has to do is give me the option to share my screen. I share one. I could see everyone, and we just go. You know what I mean? I'm asking Susmitha to share screen. I'm clicking this button, but I guess I have to ask her verbally if I could share my screen. Susmitha, can we just try it? So this is like a trial run here and see if this is gonna
Yes.
work.
That's the reason why I asked at the beginning of the meeting, do you want me to share the screen? And
Well, I
you
could
guys
share
said, no,
too.
we
You
don't
can
want
make
to.
anybody. You can make anyone the presenter. If you say you just click on me and then you sit, go to meeting is a
Actually,
little more cumbersome than the rest of these.
I can actually show my screen to you, John, and I have the application on there, I think. Oh, I kind of closed it. You know what? Let me,
Yeah, you can make me the presenter too. Like I said, if you want someone else to do it, because I
Okay.
got it all up on my other monitor over here.
okay, you know what? I'm gonna put you back on then. Hold on a minute. All right. I don't know why it didn't.
That's the mute button. I think you muted me.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah, there we go. Okay, so can everybody see this?
Yep, we can see it.
So I'm just in here, Jamie. I could tape this. I could whatever. It's just live. Oops, I hit the wrong button there. But you know what I mean? We just move. And then we start with one and we go right down. I don't know if people want to do that for next time. And we got to find some commonality, obviously, between what people's thoughts are.
Here's the only thing. I mean, I guess I agree with this. The only thing is that once we get all our comments, whether it's John or whether it's you or whether it's me or whether it's Steve or whether it's Tom, it just doesn't. I'm not sure that we as a group need to sit here while you move these things around. If one of us feel like they have a pretty good grasp on what we talked about, look, I'll be happy to do it. I have nothing better I have to do, but
Sure.
I'm just not sure that's the most efficient way for something like this, where you're going to cut and paste a Word document around, and so does anyone else have a thought on that? I'm not sure.
So Smitha, I just passed it back to you.
Okay. We came back, right?
Yeah. You're not
Yeah.
sharing anything, but everyone's back on the screen. I just think I get where you're saying, Jamie, but every time we come around, it's like, well, we like Tom's bullets, but we think we got to expand and we got to add page numbers. And you know what I mean? I think you're never going to be happy. And where you're happy is when everyone forms a consensus at the same time, which again, yeah, I definitely think have a crack at it, move some stuff around again, but I still think there's going to be some tweaks that we're all going to need to have some agreement on somewhere.
Agreed. I guess so. Maybe this is a compromise. Maybe since it's the first time we kind of collected a bunch of ideas, if we get this updated, all right, outside of this meeting, we'll hopefully have something that is very close to being agreeable to the group. And then we're looking at it and oh yeah, we're going to move a line or two, but it feels like we're going to be really kind of, I'm not sure exactly where everything needs to be yet, and so like, does that seem like a reasonable comment? So next time, someone, myself or whoever, is going to edit this based on the commentary. We're going to have a document that's going to be 95% of the way there, and then we're going to really get that last 5% live, John, on your monitor, and you're moving things around as we comment, just to get all the last little tweaking done. Reasonable to everyone?
Jamie, Steve,
Yep.
sounds reasonable. it would be great if we could do the 95% and only have the 5% left. But if you have the time and the wherewithal to do the first stab, I think that would get us a good way through it.
Jamie Miller Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think I do. I mean, look, and Steve, maybe you and I, maybe I'll share. Well, no, I can't. Can I talk to Steve? I can't talk to Steve. Oh my God. Okay. So I can send it to Smitha to send it to Steve. Unless Smitha talks to the town attorney and finds out that I can.
I think you were talking to Steve before too. The chair and vice chair were meeting on the applications before the actual meeting and actually going through a, preliminary scan of the applications. And I thought, as long as you don't meet as a group, and I thought the chair and vice chair were allowed to discuss. I could be wrong on that. Aileen, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Aileen?
So per Robert's Rules of Order, for this, your quorum is 3. So 3 or more of you could not meet. But in theory, let's say, Jamie, you and Steve could meet. Tom and Shannon could meet, or you and John could meet, as long as there's only 2 of you. And you can, say if you meet with Steve and Shannon and John are going to meet, one of you or Steve could speak with Shannon or Tom or John, as long as it's not 3 or more, that it's not, because the way Robert's Rules of Order are written, it's so you guys aren't secretly meeting or deciding ahead of time that I don't like this application and that everything is supposed to be above board. But for something like this, as long as you're under 3 individually, you guys can talk.
Okay,
I
thank
agree.
you.
And
Jamie,
it's just about, I'm sorry, this is so hard, the virtual thing. I agree with Aileen, and it's just about application. You're not discussing a potential application here. You're just discussing how you would want your application format to look like. And it's okay for Jamie and Steve to meet. And if, John and Tom want to meet, and then Shannon wants to meet at the regular meeting and see, what you 2 groups have come up with, that's fine. You can work separately, I mean.
All right, for Jamie Miller Chair. So then I will, with Steve, we will pull together, based upon everyone's comments, a revised application that I will then share with Smitha, that we'll share with the group. And when we meet next month, we will do it on screen. And at that point, hopefully, we can, and frankly, if I don't know if this is legal or not. So I share with Smitha, she shares with the group. So Aileen, that would mean that if John has a comment, he can talk directly to me. He and I can talk because it's only 2 people. Is that correct?
That is correct. You could also, if you and Steve meet and you come up with, this is what I think we were talking about last night, you, Jamie, can send an email to John, just John, and say, hey, John, Steve and I think this is what we all agreed on. What do you think? And he could email you back, mark up this document or email you back. However, you can then, you or John or Annie, pick one person, could send an email to Tom to say, hey, Tom, what do you think of this? Tom makes whatever changes. Tom could individually email Shannon and say, hey, Shannon, I think we're getting good at this. What do you think? Do you think there's any changes that need to be made? Okay. So you see how you're not really meeting, but you're
Yeah.
you're getting it done without it being a meeting.
Got it. Okay, I mean, thank you. So I'm
That's
pretty
the
clear
loophole.
then about how we can do this to be still above board. So that's kind of what will happen. Steve and I will take the lead in pulling this back together. We'll be able to share individually with the group even beforehand. And when we get to the next meeting, we'll hopefully have it really close. Then we'll share screen and we'll make any last changes at that time. So if everybody okay with that? Is that okay? So that'll be the plan. So that's the plan for that going forward. I wanted to ask one other question. Where's my agenda? I think that any other member comments, concerns, questions. So the only comment I had, and then maybe there's others that people have, Smita, in the meeting minutes last time, we had talked about if someone didn't have an application that maybe didn't have all the landscaping done or all the lighting done, you were going to talk to the town attorney, about whether or not it was feasible for us to pass them along to zoning, but request that when they have additional information, that they come back and review things with us, the things that, weren't part of their package originally. And maybe you're going to say, oh, we should just deny them and not even hear them. But it's probably not always going to happen that way. So do you have an answer to that, or can we get an answer to that?
I don't know if you remember, I sent you an email right after the meeting, the next day, after talking to Jay regarding this. And we kind of thought that instead of asking the applicant to come back before the ARB, the more convenient way for us is, typically whenever an applicant goes to zoning commission, after he or she seeks an approval, they have to come back for, getting their building permit. Or at that time, the zoning enforcement officer has to sign off for zoning compliance. So we discussed in-house that whenever an applicant is ready to go ahead and, implement anything, we'd make sure that the appropriate staff would be consulted. Like I would be consulted if it's a subdivision or if it relates to ARB. And if I'm dealing with the planning side of things, and Jay is dealing with the zoning commission side of things, then I would be consulted for, matters that need further review after an approval is made. Typically in our recommendation letters, we do summarize and say that, we would like to have more information on lighting when it becomes available. So, Jay would recommend that zoning commission keep that in the application's approval letter from the zoning commission. And then when it goes to John to sign off, John in our office to sign off on zoning compliance, he would look at that letter and go, hey, Susmita, we have this, per ARB, they're supposed to provide a lighting plan. So could you make sure that whatever they're submitting is acceptable? And then I will reach out to you and Steve, who are the chair and vice chair, and ask you, do you think it's okay? And maybe, if you want me to separately discuss with the other two people, like Aileen said, as long as we are not all meeting as a group, it should be fine for you to, have a preliminary scan and let me know your thoughts, and I can convey it to the applicant. That's a more simpler way than going, if we want to amend the charter or the town laws, it'll take forever.
Okay. No, I just was wondering, and I don't remember seeing that email. I got to go back. I don't remember.
Yeah, I sent you an email and I said, I discussed with Jay and we discussed that the responsible staff would make sure that we consult the chair and the vice chair based on the approval letters conditions. Even if you said a color scheme is not something that you like and if you would like that to be changed, and if the zoning commission said that, then when they come back for a building permit approval, we have a leeway there where we can say, hey, John, just let us know when they come for your signature, and then I'll make sure that I run it by you guys to make sure that you're okay with the color scheme.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Susmita. Okay. So are there any other comments, concerns, or questions from board members tonight?
Jamie, Steve, Vice Chair.
Yes.
Just a quick, I'm just curious. So it sounds like we have a plan to move ahead and update our application and our checklist and hopefully we can get that done, or pretty close to being done next month. Then Susmita, what happens, the application and the checklist does that have to go before anybody at the town, or does that just become incorporated as the new application?
I think the timing is perfect. We can adopt it by a vote next month, which is the beginning of the year. And we can, I'll make sure that the new application gets put online, and we start referring to the new application to the applicants. That's all. There's nothing else that's needed.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Smitha. Any other comments or questions tonight? Okay. That being said, is there a motion, please, to adjourn? John
Dave.
Cavell? Motion. Is there a second?
Aye. Steve Long, Vice Chair.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Have a great
holidays.
holiday.
Sure.
Aye.
For a minute, I thought no one was going to leave.
Aileen, very festive tonight.
Yes,
I do.
I was gonna send the reindeer past me.
Happy
It's
holidays.
that kind of
and-
year.
That it is.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone.
Steve, I'll be in touch,
Thank
but
you.
I'll just be calling you and you only.
Yep.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
All right, take care. Bye.